Welcome to War Thunder with Subdued. How y'all doing tonight? Well, yesterday I started on my What I'd Like to See in War Thunder series. Now, I'm only working on aircraft because I just don't do tanks. And I am probably never really going to do tanks again because I think they've gotten way out of hand. But aircraft are still within the realm of possibility. Yesterday I did the Americans. Today I'm going to do the Germans. I'm going to just go right on down the line. And every plane that I'm going to offer as my opinion that could be added to the game is a plane that at least three prototypes were made. Now, these were not necessarily just prototypes, these were probably the only production planes available at the time. Um, and there's a reason there were only limited numbers. Let's start off with a nice heavy fighter. One that many people probably never heard of because it would have been right around the exact same time that the BF 110 was being produced, and that was the FW 187. It was a heavy fighter, and it was armed very, very similarly to BF 110. It had four 7.92 millimeter machine guns and two 20 millimeter cannons, MGFFs. So you can figure out basically what the weapons loadout was like. Um, it's a plane that we could see in the game. They had 9 of them built, and basically the reason they didn't continue building them is because they had the BF 109 or 110, excuse me. And production was centered around keeping the number of models down. So the Focke-Wulf 187 did not proliferate. And honestly, it looked very similar to the 110 with the exception that it had a single rudder instead of dual rudders. And I don't think it was quite as pencil long. But beyond that, you can look it up. It's in Wikipedia. It's a good looking plane. Next up on the list, a night fighter. And this is a semi early night fighter. It'd be the Arado 240 C2. Now, they don't give any specifications for the weapons loadout, but the speed was pretty good at 387 miles an hour. For a night fighter, that would be pretty good. And for its time of construction, it would probably be in the late tier 2s, possibly early tier 3s, which wouldn't be a bad place for that plane. Then I'm going to come up with one that's rather on the controversial side because of just how bad it was. And that's the ME 210. Now, they built 90 of those things. And right off the get-go, they were death traps. And that was due to aerodynamics. Something in the wing shape and form was horribly off, and those planes were literal death traps. Why am I choosing it? Well, there were 90 of them built. There were several more that weren't finished, and they were converted over to 410s. But it might be interesting to see if the 210 can survive in War Thunder. And armament was very similar to the 410A series. Now we're going to get into the realm of cuckoo nuts. The ME 209. Now, some people are going to go, but the 209 was just a racer one off. No, 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 no. This was a fighter replacement for the 109. There were four of them built. The big difference is they used an annular radar, or annular radar, blah, 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 mouth not working, annular radiator. And they packed a very similar firepower to the G10 series. Two 13 millimeters and a 30 millimeter, which wouldn't be bad, but the plane was a little bit faster. So it would be, it was about 435 miles an hour. Not a bad plane, different wing layout, different tail layout, and different look altogether. I think it might be an excellent plane. Another one in the Messerschmitt 09 series is the 309. Now, this one is a bit of a heavy fighter for a single engine fighter because it was carrying a 30 millimeter cannon, two 20 millimeter cannons, and four 13 millimeter cannons, or machine guns, if you will. There were four of those built. And again, this was a much faster 109. Much faster than a 109. This would probably be on par with the K series as far as speed maneuverability, but it, again, annular radiator, got it out right the first time this time. And it's, because there were four of them built, it would probably be a decent plane to put into the 109 line. Now let's get down into the fast movers. We've got 163s, we've got 262s of multiple types. We've got the HE 162. Two versions of that. I'd like to get the second one, please, sometime soon, Gaijin. Put it out there where we can get it. But we don't have the Heinkel 280. Now, there were 9 of those planes built. Yeah, they were all prototypes, but what's the big deal? We've got the Horton 229. I would definitely like to see the 280. The 280 is, in my opinion, a awesome looking plane. And it really makes more sense than rocket planes and one-off prototypes that never actually were armed. At least there were 9 of them. Well, that's pretty much the fighter lineup. At least the beginnings of the fighter lineup. Now, I didn't add any more crazy jets because, as much as it would be nice to throw in a bunch of Luft 46 prototypes, it wouldn't make a lot of sense. But let's talk about bombers now. Now, we've got a lot of stuff here, especially stuffed up in Tier 1 um, that isn't really that good. Or stuff that is actually much better than it should be. Or maybe I said that wrong. Um, the Ju 88s, they should be Tier 2. They're just no doubt about it. They're good performing aircraft. They're not the swiftest in the world, but they're not the slowest, and they're definitely better than most of the Tier 1 aircraft that they go up against. The same is true of the Heinkel 111 H3. Um, Honestly, I'd like to see an earlier model of the Heinkel 111, preferably the D model. Uh, you would notice a completely different look to the Heinkel 111D from the H series. The D did not have that birdcage nose. It had a much different look to it. The cockpit was actually looked like a cockpit. But what I'd like to see added, besides a new HE 111, is a DOE 19. Now, people are probably wondering, what's the Donier 19? Think of the DOE 19 as the TB3 of the Germans. 4 engines, heavy bomber, slow as all get out, pretty weedy bombing load, but still, the TB3 of Germany. Everyone deserves a TB3. I don't care. Yeah, I'm not making fun of Russia, but I'm making fun of Russia. The DOE 19 would be the TB3 of Germany. Next, I'd like to see the FW 191. Another heavy bomber. And again, one that we don't have in game. I believe this one's a twin engine, and it's quite speedy for what it is. It's about 300 and some odd miles an hour. So it's not a slow bird. An interesting plane to consider. Then another heavy bomber, the Ju 290. Now there were 65 of these built. They could carry 3,000 kilograms and or, I believe it's or, 3 Fritz X bombs. Those were ship killers. Those were designed to be ship killers. And the only reason they didn't kill a U.S. light cruiser is because the bomb went completely through the ship before it exploded. That should tell you something about the Fritz X bomb. But 3,000 kilograms on a 4-engine bomber isn't a bad load. And you could probably stick that in just after or maybe a little bit down from the FW 290 or 200, excuse me. Blah, blah, blah. And then let's take a look down our dive bomber line. We come down the dive bomber line and then it turns into an attacker line. And then it's got the famous 410A and the 410B with the 50 millimeter cannon, and then the Donier 335A1 with bombs. And finally, you get to the ME 262 with the 50 millimeter cannon. All of which are, yeah, okay. You just keep thinking those are good planes. But to get it back on track as a dive bomber or a attack bomber, if you will, how about the HS-132? It could carry a single 500 kilogram bomb, which isn't a lot, but it's a jet too. And it's not as fast as all the rest of the jets in the game. Without the bomb, it was probably just a touch faster than a Yak 15, which isn't bad for a plane that after it loses its bomb, it doesn't have anything. And I think it would be an actually quite awesome looking plane to get in the game. So that's pretty much my idea on where the bomber line should go. And don't ask me for anything beyond the Arado 234C3. The reason is Germany really didn't get anything other than the East Germans got the IL-28. Now, if somebody wants to stick that on the end of the bomber line, yeah, okay, go ahead. I wouldn't be thrilled for it. Matter of fact, I would probably be less than thrilled about it. Now, let's get up to modern equipment, or at least more modern equipment. Right now, Germany has the MiG 15 bis, and they have the CL 13, the Mark V version of the Sabre. Here's a couple of things that I would suggest. The Hawker Seahawk. If you don't want to go with the HS-132 at the end of the attacker line, I would go with the Seahawk here. And the reason I'd go with the Seahawk is because the Seahawk could carry quite the external bomb load. And it had 420 millimeter cannons, so it could revert to a fighter real quick. Now, sitting next to the CL-13, I would probably want to stick in the F-84F. Now, the CL-13 is faster than the F-84F, but you know, I have a rough time with the rocket planes. I don't like the rocket planes. I know there are people out there that are absolutely gaga over rocket planes. You can keep them. I find no use for them. Matter of fact, one of mine still has free plays left on it because I'm just not interested in them. The same with the 50 caliber or 50 millimeter on the 262. I won't play it because it's stupid to play it. Yeah, there are people out there that are good with it, but Yeah, it's a novelty. I've got it because it's in the line. Another plane to stick in that line might be the F 86K. Now, what that is, that's the NATO version of the Sabre Dog, the F 86D. The export version of the Sabre D does not come with the rocket pack. It comes with the four 20 millimeter cannons. That might be a good follow on from the CL 13. If we don't get the CL 13 Mark 6, I wouldn't mind seeing the Mark 6, but we've already got so many Sabres in the game. I'm trying to find something a little different. Now, the F 84 or F 86K would be an interesting change. Um, Here's where we run into the problem, though. It's got an afterburner. Basically, it's got boost. It's still subsonic, but it's got boost. So that's something that Gaijin needs to get their heads wrapped around. Um, the only thing they have to adjust when a plane has a boost is the fuel consumption. When you kick in the afterburner or boost, if you will, your fuel consumption should go up drastically, which means your time in the air goes down drastically. Something to consider. And if we ever get into supersonic aircraft, that is something that's going to have to be figured out. And another plane we could throw on there, and I would stick this plane underneath the Horton, would be the G91R3. The G91R3 is the German bought version of the G91s from Fiat. And basically, the big difference is the German version was armed with two 30 millimeter DEFA cannons. Apparently, the Germans did not like the G91s very much. However, they did fly them and they were acceptable as far as maneuverability and weapons carrying. But the German pilots didn't really want them. They didn't like them. Haven't figured that one out yet, and it really wasn't explained beyond that. But the G91R3 would be a good plane. It also carries a pretty good weapons loadout. So, not having to rely on 30 millimeter cannons for ground attack, you'd have the rocket pods or the bombs. Just remember, all G91s had 4 pylons. So, that's something to remember. Gaijin needs to update their model to reflect 4 weapons pylons. And the reason I haven't gone for any other planes is because the only other one that I know of would be the MiG 17F. And I'm pretty sure that one is supersonic. Just barely, but still supersonic, and it's got an afterburner. Um, and that doesn't mean supersonic in a dive, that means supersonic in level flight. Maybe I'm wrong. If I'm wrong, great. I'm wrong. Um, that's just a matter of, at this point, it would be a matter of adding it in the game and taking into account the afterburner. Other than that, there isn't much else that I would consider adding to the German line because there's already a large number of planes for the most part, especially in the fighter roles. Um, Now, I did add some in the heavy fighter and a couple of Messerschmitts, which, if you think about it, we've got a little room here. 209, 309. Yeah, I could see that happening. What do you guys think? Now, I also said I didn't design, put in anything that didn't actually have planes built. So I don't want anyone getting on me going, they're prototypes. Yeah, well, so's this one right there. That's a prototype, and you all jonesed for it real hard. So, and so's this one, I believe, because there weren't that many of them made. And this one, and this one. They're all prototypes. That doesn't mean they're bad planes, it just means that they're prototypes. And we could actually use something to fill in some of the slots. Like this big one right here between the 109K4 and the 163, which I still think should be off in its own little la la land. But that's neither here nor there. That's just the way it's set up at the moment. That's about all I've got. I hope you all are having a great day, a better tomorrow, and we will catch you in the skies. Unless you catch me first. Subdude signing out. Bye bye.